This hour, we're taking a hard look at what the banking industry is up against, from the economy to leadership to rewriting the rules that the banks have to play by. Now, Bill Cohan, my colleague, right here, Bloomberg contributing editor, wanted one person in particular to join us, Noujaim. He is a vice chairman at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. He's a senior banker. Bill, I know the reason you wanted Ferris here is he's a senior banker with decades of experience on Wall Street. He was going about his business as usual, advising clients structuring deals, when all of a sudden he had a front row seat to not one, but two trips to blanking oblivion.
Yes, and Ferris is here to tell us about that in a minute. But first I want to talk to you, Ferris, about your experience in the Middle East with sovereign wealth funds. We're going to keep our viewers on the hook just a little longer for that exciting story about, you know, your experience at Bear Stearns and Merrill Lynch. But what is going on in the Middle East now? Especially in Dubai, it seemed like it was virtually on the brink a few weeks ago. They opened last week, the tallest building in the world. What's going on there? What are investors thinking about over there now?
Well, look, Dubai obviously is going through a restructuring phase right now, but Dubai, in my opinion, has been a big success story, huge success story. To me, we need more success stories like Dubai around the world, and we are getting it. I mean, for the Middle East, for the world, the more of a middle class that we can get developed in the Middle East in particular, the world benefits from that. And Dubai certainly has been part of that boom, as well as Beirut, Lebanon, as well as the other GCC countries. Putting in context, the GDP of Dubai from 2000 to 2008 grew at an annual rate of around 22%. It went from a $17 billion economy to an almost $82 billion economy. The whole total GCC GDP went from $350 billion to over $1 trillion in that same period.
And during that time, they created these huge sovereign wealth funds. Are they still actively investing now, these huge funds? Are they still growing? They've made some investments here that hadn't worked out, obviously. What's the status now?
Well, Kuwait, some of the Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds have been around for quite some time. I mean, KIA, the Kuwaiti Investment Fund, and KIO, the Kuwaiti Investment Office, has been around since the 1960s. So some of them have actually been in business for quite some time. The sovereign wealth funds, particularly the ones in the Middle East, but as well as the Asian sovereign wealth funds, invested heavily in the financial space early on. In essence, it came really to the rescue of the financial sector. And it started in November of 2007 with this big Citigroup investment by ADIA, the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. And it followed in the spring of the next year with more investments throughout European and American banks.
And do you see them continuing to be active investors here in the U.S.? And from that, and also as part of that answer, what you see the outlook for M&A and financing in general in the U.S. now?
Sure. We do continue to expect both the Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds and the Asian sovereign wealth funds to be active. Clearly, the Middle Eastern investors took a bit of a respite. I mean, they got caught earlier on in the credit crisis, and people have to remember they're called the sovereign wealth funds because they are political entities. They are government entities, and because they invested early on, some of those investments did well, some of them didn't. Some of them did not do well. So yes, we expect them to be major participants in the credit markets and the equity markets on a global basis.
And the outlook for financial services in the U.S. and for products, you know, you're a practitioner, sure. M&A, financing, what's it look like in 2010?
It's very strong. I mean, if the trend continues, and we expect the trend to continue, the market is going to clearly, 2008, 2009, we've had significant slowdown. But the trend has picked up quite a bit. The M&A market in 2007 was north of $3 trillion. We're now a little bit over, on a global basis, we're now over $2 trillion. And it's heading up. And we expect the same industries to be pretty active, which is the finance space, oil and gas, oil and energy, the energy sector, and the healthcare.
Ferris, can I jump in for a moment?
Sure.
Because we talked about your front row seat to oblivion. When what comes to mind when you reflect on the crisis that we've lived through, lessons that you might have learned?
Sure. As you said, as you correctly pointed out, I did have front row seats on both two major firms on Wall Street. I think my major takeaway from a personal perspective is once you die once professionally, it's impossible to die again. So I think the Bear Stearns experience actually made me a stronger person, both from a professional perspective and also from a personal perspective. It tends to put in life what's important in terms of family and friends. So that, my strongest takeaway is that professional death that I experienced at Bear, you, without sounding cocky, you almost feel a strong sense of wrong and right and things you need to do, particularly as you're representing the shareholders.
Could you ever have imagined, Ferris, after experiencing Bear Stearns and going over to Merrill afterwards, that it could happen again, and then what happened last September of 08, excuse me, could have happened in the way it did?
No, I mean, look, obviously, if I had, I wouldn't have. I would have probably done things a little bit differently. I was a strong proponent of. I was the third largest internal shareholder of Bear Stearns, I think. I mean, a lot of us at Bear Stearns suffered personal pain. At Merrill, I was also a very strong proponent of equity being, because that tied in with my historical theme. So, no, I didn't expect that. I remember having dinner with the director at Merrill, and I said, I hope you better not be taking me out of the frying pan into the fire.
It's been great to have you. Folks, Ferris Noujaim, Bank of America Merrill Lynch. We're back in 2.